I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Abington School Committee for Tuesday, January 23rd. This is the middle high school library, and it's now 7 o'clock. Could everyone please stand for salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's time for our hearing of visitors. Are there any visitors who would like to be heard this evening? All right, seeing no hands. Reading and approval of records. The minutes for January 2nd. Anyone have any changes, questions, corrections?
I have no changes.
All right, then I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2018, as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, principal's report. Dr. Teresa Sullivan.
I defer to Ms. Luco for the handbook.
All right.
So the first, basically what we're doing is we're trying to change some of the language to amend the student handbook for this year when it comes to the smoking offense. So for our handbook, it puts vaping and smoking in the same category. And this year we've had kind of a big increase in the number. Kind of out of the blue, it hasn't been a problem. Smoking hasn't been a problem in the school. But this year we've had 12 people suspended for smoking and one suspended twice for smoking. And the consequences right now have it as a mandatory 3-day out-of-school suspension for the first offense, a 5-day out-of-school suspension for the second, and 10 days for the third, which is a lot of time to be out of school on a suspension. So what we'd like to do is to change the language of the handbook for this year to say that it can be up to 3 days suspension and not indicate in or out of school. The reason for this is because of what we're hearing from parents and what we're seeing is that this is the first time we've had a second offense of something like this. So the first offense, the suspension didn't really do what it was supposed to do. The parents are also communicating with us that to have them home and they're unsupervised at home, there's no consequence there for them. They get a day off of school or 3 days, mandatory 3 days off from school. And it's not delivering the same message that we're intending it to deliver. Also, Mass General Laws, Chapter 222 indicate that they want schools to keep kids in school. And this is a lot of time to be out of school suspension. So to have it be a mandated, this is the only repercussion for your offense is very strong. And it kind of goes against what we should be doing. The other thing that came up in looking at other schools and what they're doing, a lot of schools have changed their policies because they're struggling with the same vaping that's happening in their buildings. It's difficult to detect. It's not something you can put a detector in your stalls and your bathrooms and find. So they're having lots of issues with it too, and they're separating it from drug paraphernalia or the smoking policies that they have had. And now they're doing things like the first offense is a 1 day in school. The second offense is 3 days in school. Some schools have done things like up to 5 days suspension, but not indicating in or out of school. So if you look at that, I think you guys have this handout. What we're trying to do is change the language from 3 days out of school to up to 2 days suspension. And instead, for the second offense, instead of 5 days out of school, up to 3 days suspension. And for the third, 10 days out of school, up to 5 days suspension. So that's kind of what we're trying to do now.
Okay, I have a question for you, Laura. First of all, I would much prefer them in an in-school suspension than out of school, obviously for educational purposes. You've already had one person who has become a repeat offender.
Right.
Is there a reason why you're dropping not just the out-of-school wording, but you're dropping the number of days?
I think the number of days to miss classes, to not be in the classroom, is 3 is a lot of days to miss in a row. it's tough to come back from. I think we've been seeing that. Tough to make up that word. So I think that the number of days needs to be dropped too, because they're not only now missing that day that they're spending in the office when they're caught, in this problem, but now it's 3 more days on top of that usually, out of classrooms.
Do you feel that the ability to give them an in-school as opposed to an out-of-school suspension will send a stronger message?
I think students typically, out of school it's tough because if your parents are working, they might not be supervision, so it's hard to say what they're doing. Or if anybody is at home able to talk to them about what their behaviors have done, or the consequences of their actions. But in school, they have access to materials, they can do their work, somebody's there, and they don't really have another option.
And it's not a day off from school. Does anyone else have any questions for Laura?
I have one follow-up, I guess, and it's more the up to wording, and I guess it would be at some point, should there have to be at least a suspension? So if it's 2 to 5 days, like if up to leaves it still could be 0 even for a third offense, and at a certain point, I don't know if it's best to.
I think the up to language allows you to kind of weigh the conditions of what's happening. Was it something that was found in your locker?
Right.
Or was it in a shared space, or were you just there?
Yeah, and I think I'm talking more towards just the third offense part of it. So by the time the third time, I'm wondering if there should be at least, I don't want to say guaranteed suspension, but not up to maybe like 1 to 5 days or 2 to 5 days, but just so there's something written where there at least will be a day.
So like a suspension up to 5 days.
That works.
You'd rather see it that way, a suspension up to 5 days.
Yeah, I want to follow up with Chris on that too, because you could go 4 or 5 times and have nothing, and that's not any discipline at all. So I think at least at the third offense and beyond, you need at least, in my opinion, you need at least 2 days, because at that point, they're taking advantage of not being disciplined.
I think at that point addiction becomes my worry, not that the discipline, more like if they're there a third time, we've got an addiction problem more than a discipline problem. So I think a suspension might be the right way to go on that, but I think a suspension up to 5 days, maybe, and you can add an addiction piece, maybe some counseling, maybe a class, something that they have to do in addition.
I still struggle if it's not a minimum on that third offense of at least 2 days. It's going to be, you go from, probably from an excessive amount of discipline, the original policy read, to essentially no discipline the way that this policy reads.
I think what Laura's suggesting is that the third, this would be changed to a suspension up to 5 days. So a suspension's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's not like there's not going to be a discipline consequence.
But there's no minimum. It still could be 0.
No, a suspension.
A suspension would be for the
At least one.
Or you could say 1 suspension up to 5 days.
I at least like to have a number in there.
So A doesn't work? Like to say a suspension?
Not, for me it doesn't. I'm not going to speak for the other committee members, but for me it doesn't.
Well, that would mean the suspension is going to
Or 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
So 1 to 5
One,
days.
1 up to 5
1
days
up to
of
5
suspension.
days. A suspension of 1 day up to 5 days.
First and second offense, do you have a problem with the way those are written?
No.
But how do you keep track of the offenses? If you don't have an offense the first 2 times, how do you?
Well,
keep
every
track?
offense is tracked through our discipline system. So every offense that comes in is recorded. So I'll know if it's the first or second or third offense, it will be right away. So you would know what you did for the first offense. So
Okay.
when that student's name comes to me, I just look at their history and I can see first offense and I can see what was happened then. And then obviously you would want incremental action to take place.
You might want to explain the printout. So if we pulled out Mike Borowski and we saw.
Yeah, so if your name came into the printout, you were found, it would come to me through the computer, it would say your name, it would say, caught in restroom, it would explain the circumstances, And then what I would do is I would go back into your discipline history, and it would give me a discipline history of everything that's happened in the year, or I could go back to prior years. So you can look at the whole high school for 2 years. And then it would tell me, you know, what the number was from the handbook. So it would say, I think it's C5. And I would just search for C5s, and I would see how many times it's happened per year. And then you can see what the follow-up was for the discipline. So if I found the first one, I would see, oh, for your first one, maybe it was, maybe you had an in-school for 1 day. And if I saw a second one, I would look, it might say you had 2 in-school days. So I could go by each case by case.
The discipline's still going to be progressive.
Yes, it's still going to be progressive.
And it says progressive for all discipline, you know, in a different place in the handbook. I also think that we're not the only ones struggling with this. It's everywhere. And we've been able to work a little bit. It does depend on circumstance and the parent piece. We've sent one student to Independence Academy for our smoking cessation program after school in the evening, but do they have a ride? Do they, where's the parent piece of that? So there are different circumstances for different events, but certainly progressive.
Suspending, this alone wouldn't create a situation where someone is a dropout from school, but it certainly helps them become a dropout from school because we're just piling.
Right. I mean, after 10 days out of the building, it's difficult to recover. And especially depending on the type of student you are, it can be more difficult to recover.
And if that's the third offense, they've already done 3, they've done 5, so they're up to 18 days suspended.
Yeah. But I agree with it. I agree with the general idea of the changes.
Does anyone else have any questions? All right. What we're looking for then is a motion to approve the amended amendment to the Abington High School Student Handbook for the 2017-2018 school year. Or I should say as amended instead of as presented. Do we have someone who will make that?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, and Dr. Sullivan?
I think you have a handout for the program of studies changes for 2018-19. The significant changes here in terms of courses, leveling, new courses, are the business department. We're looking to change the accounting courses from unleveled to levels 1 and 2. That likely would be in one section, levels 1 and 2, like we do most of our electives. And personal finance and business finance are also from grades 9 through 12 to just 11 through 12. Our 9th and 10th graders are really struggling with a lot of these concepts, and they're not there yet. They're not ready to think about their finance and business finance and accounting. We still have some business classes that are 9 through 12, but not these particular business classes. The mathematics and computer science department, one new math class called Math Boot Camp, really is to speak to the language of math, particularly around our English language learners who are struggling to jump into an algebra or geometry class with that language barrier, but to provide them sort of a review of the language. At the same time, they're also taking algebra. Computer department, there are several new classes. We had 2 classes prior to this, and now we're looking to break that and change it into 4 classes. Computer programming, web development, computer science principles, which we had, but we're just going to add the AP level. And hopefully at some point we'll have a second AP class, the computer science A. We're not ready to add 2 AP classes at once in the department, but we're hoping that that would be the plan for next year. And the wellness department is completely revamped. Casey has made a whole lot of recommendations, but this really goes to reaching health, reaching kids earlier, moving health from grade 10 to grade 9. Health is the only place from grades, I think, 1 through 10 that we didn't have a health class the students have to take. And as we looked at this in a lot of detail, we are struggling with students making wise decisions and choices for their health, and we're struggling with emotional health, particularly for our young students. Right now, the students get about 20 hours in 7th grade, another 20 in 8th grade, and nothing in 9th grade. So those are pretty significant years, grades 7 through 9. So if we can offer them and move this class to grade 9 and make it a full semester course, we hope to make a bigger, stronger impact on their health decisions. So that's why we'd like to move health to grade 9. The other courses will be, instead of physical education, grade 9, physical education, grade 10, flag football every September, volleyball every, for 4 years, we're really looking to revamp how we run that and give kids lots more options. We know we can't run every single course every year, but we thought we'd bring to you the entire vision and then try to run them as we can run them with our staff that we have. And we'd also like to see what student interest is in the classes. So particularly I think for first aid, CPR, and AED, for example, obviously our teachers need to be trained and certified. Mind, spirit, body, our teacher will be trained and certified, and same with CrossFit. So we're going to have certified teachers to train our students as well. We expect that our students will be certified when they complete the class. There are a couple of hybrid courses there. You see like mind, body, spirit at the end of the second page there. It's a hybrid course, meaning some days they'll be in the classroom, some days they'll be in the weight room, some days they'll be outside. As they write the curriculum, they'll determine exactly how many hours are spent in the classroom and how many hours are spent in physical activity. Just a whole nother look at phys ed. It's pretty exciting for phys ed and wellness. I don't know if you have any particular questions on particular courses or the arrangement.
Well, it's a really exciting list of things to do. I'd like to take a couple of them myself. Can I come up? But what I'm noticing is there are about 7 choices for 11th and 12th grade, and there are only 2 for 9 through 12. Are there going to be more expansions?
Yeah, we're hoping to hit 11 and 12 first. We also know that the 9th grade students are going to have to take the health class. That's
Right.
going to be something they have to take. So that's going to limit the number of electives they have in their programming. And then the 9-10, they're going to have options with either competitive games or lifelong fitness. So competitive games will probably be more traditional phys ed, like they've had flag football, basketball, and versus a lifelong fitness. And so we do hope to expand that in further years, and just think that we may even want to, Kate originally had thought about just making it a grade 9, and then do a 10 through 12, but we don't think we can actually schedule it that way yet. I'm not sure we would be able to.
I mean, it seems like there might be not quite enough for 10th grade to choose from, since the 9th grade's got the health and wellness, the wellness class, the health class, and 11th and 12th have numerous options available to them, which you might want to look at.
Right, but what's going to happen next year, and so I'll come back to you again probably to expand that, but
Okay.
what's going to happen next year is because our 10th graders have health now, our 9th graders don't. So
Right.
when they become 10th graders, they're going to have health. And our
okay.
incoming, so and actually next year, 9 and 10 will have health.
All right.
So then we'll be able to open that up the following year.
Okay, thank you, I understand that. Anyone else have any questions?
I just had one question, Dr. Sullivan, on the health thing. So if you could just clear, I might just be confused with it starts with the 2018-19 school year, then for 2020, 2021, it mentions it'll be required for 9th, so it won't be required for 9th for a few years?
No, it's going to be required for 9th, or I probably should say 1920,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve the revisions to the Abington High School's program of studies for the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. All right, report of the superintendent of schools.
So in your packet, you got my first crack at my goals based on the feedback that I was given by the committee. I tried to incorporate everything that was given to me in this. I'm not asking for the committee to approve this tonight, and we can consider it tonight if the committee wishes. I'm just looking to put this out there for you and take it wherever it is that we need to go in terms of the discussion. And, I had to add a goal here in order to get at something that I think is important for our system, and I'll describe that as I continue through this. So the first goal is a district improvement goal to continue to transition and adjust the pre-K through 12 to a new configuration that provides the best possible educational program for our students. This talks a lot about the schedule. We're going to talk about the schedule tonight. It also talks about the facility piece, and we're not done. We're staging next to the building for the solar panels that are coming. We've got a field that's coming. And also I didn't want to forget about our Woodsdale and our Beaver Brook, just because they're not physically housed here, so I included that. I won't read each of the anticipated activities to you. I'll just maybe highlight something and answer any questions people have, of course. The next district goal is increase the educator proficiency with technology related to instructional tools, assessments, platforms, pre-K through 12. 100% of the faculty and staff being engaged in professional development focused on best practice use, assessments, and improving digital literacy throughout the year. I'm going to keep going back to, we are talking about value-added, effective use of technology in our classrooms, both in a way that manages the room, but also with instruction, with the goal at the end that our students are able to perform assessments using technologies to demonstrate what they know or are able to do as a result of the instruction, so that they leave the Abington Public Schools as experts in digital literacy and able to solve problems using computers, because we're trying to prepare them not for the tools we have today, but for the tools that are going to emerge as they go out into the work world or into college. This includes a one-to-one computer initiative that we're going to be working on. It also includes, that's primarily going to be taking place at the secondary level, but also that means the elementary level. Although it won't be one-to-one, it's going to be likely pretty darn close to one-to-one in classroom environments. And so that's why additions to the high school program studies that include AP computer science are pretty exciting, because we want students to start with us at the earliest levels, getting familiar with technology, and then as they leave our school system, they have the opportunity to even take an AP class at our high school. Student learning goal, improve student achievement across all content areas or grade levels, subgroups, and assessments developed locally and measured by the MCAS test for students in the aggregate above 1% in the median of STP, student growth percentile. Additionally, the Woodsdale Elementary School high needs student group, which includes our students with disabilities and our English language learners and our low income students, will demonstrate academic improvement on par with the state indicators. So I couldn't be exactly specific with those state indicators with this statement, because the state is going through this period of adjustment to this next generation of testing. But we need to improve those scores for those students and those subgroups, especially our students with disabilities. We were very successful last year with this, except for that subgroup. We're going to continue to work with that. Professional practice goals demonstrate improved district and school lines of communication, expectations, policies, protocols, successes, and challenges through measurable and reliable data sources. The measurable and reliable data sources are important to me. We've done some things like we check the number of times people open our constant contact messages, and that can give you a false read on how successful you are with people reading your messages. For example, we made some improvements in our messaging because we specifically, in the subject line, tell people what the announcement is. So if the youth sports program has sign-ups for something that your child doesn't participate in, you're not going to open it. So we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot when we use that as an indicator. the same time, we have had people in that, we did have people in that bank of people receiving emails that their students probably graduated 3 or 4 years ago that just haven't opted not to be in the platform anymore. Jonathan Hawes and Rich Bykowski sent out a message in the beginning of the year to clean those files up, so those people were sort of reordered by school again, and we clean those lists up. So this goal's really, not just limited to that. That's just one example. Email messages are just one piece of what happens in communications today. There are social media platforms, there are letters home, there are any number of modes that we've been using, and we want to continue to use those and continue to improve as those evolve. So I'll be looking for the committee to, at some point, let me know questions or concerns, or anyone in the committee wants to consider that. I'm going to keep working until you decide what those goals are. I won't stop. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Peter? Would you prefer that we put off approving his goals till the next meeting, or do you want to take them up tonight?
I prefer to put off.
All right.
I think I prefer to put them off more.
So we'll move those off to next month's agenda. And if anyone has any questions for Peter in the meantime, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them for you.
Start time. So a lot of work has been done on this. There are, I don't want to say it's an infinite, but there's just tremendous numbers of different start time combinations that could be applied. Many of them wouldn't make sense. So they can be eliminated pretty quickly when we get into those morning times that to try to best accommodate all people. So there's no way you're going to accommodate everyone's schedule unless you have a schedule that said you can come and go as you please. But there are certainly in the pile of options a decision that makes the most sense. So we want to really talk about those with people, answer questions, and get into a high level of detail. So as you remember, the initial considerations that the community and the school committee wanted us to focus on were increasing the amount of time between arrival and dismissal at the Woodsdale and Beaverbrook Elementary School, provide an earlier start and end time at the Woodsdale and Beaverbrook Elementary Schools, provide an adequate amount of time between the middle and high school arrival and dismissal to meet the roadway infrastructure on 18 and Glenwood. We know we need at least a 20-minute window there. It's really the pickup time at the end of the day that takes the most amount of time, which is just that action itself just takes longer than dropping off because people are trying to find cars and then go merging back into traffic rather than just stopping and letting somebody else go. Provide a start time for high school between 8 a.m. and 8:15 was the best window of opportunity for the next a late start. So there were a number of factors that are givens in this equation. The length of the school day is obvious, but I think something that people need to understand is that the length of the school day at the secondary level is 6.5 hours, and the length of the school day at the elementary level is about 6 hours. And so that hurts us on the dismissal end with our start and our end times with our elementary schools and pushes those back a little far. The distances between schools is considered, and what people are able to do if they've got kids in multiple schools, and also the length of our bus routes. We want to keep our students on the bus for the shortest time possible, and certainly not exceed what a reasonable person would assume a student should be on a bus for. The number of buses used at each school, we talked about this in more detail on this. We are using a tiered bus structure, And the reason we do this is because the fewer number of buses that the bus company needs to provide us as a district, the more money we save. So if buses can be used to do more than one run, we save that money as a district, and that money goes back into programs for kids and things that we're doing in the system. And that's why that efficiency and that cost are important to us. Because if money were no object, we could run as many buses as people want to do a door-to-door service, and start times would not be a problem. The problem is that we have to cut programming in schools to pay for that. Again, the infrastructure, for students at multiple schools from the same family. We use the number of students who are currently riding the buses to anticipate what we're going to see next year, and the current bus routes. Not that those aren't going to change as different circumstances change around town, but that was a starting point for this plot. So this is our current start and end time for this school year, which everybody knows. But we put it here, you know, so we have this point of reference. So the first option, and Felicia and I are going to have to team teach this if that's okay, because that's going to be the best presentation. This is a late start time for Abington High School. This would start the middle school at 7:25, and then the middle school would dismiss at 1:57. Now the number of buses here, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. These are not the bus numbers that are assigned. These are the number of buses that service the middle school. That makes sense to people, because that's the best way to outline which buses are doing 3 levels of service, which buses are doing 2, and which are doing 1. So I apologize we didn't print color copies for everybody. The reason we didn't do that is because it's very expensive. You can get your color copy if you want it. Trust me, I'll get you, if you want 5 color copies, I'll get you 5 color copies. But I didn't want to be making color copies that people aren't going to use immediately. So basically, those middle school buses, 1 through 10, bus 1, 2, 3, do 3 runs, 4 through 9, do 2, and then the 10th bus does 1 in this circumstance. The high school comes in at 8:15, leaves at 2:47, and then buses 1, 2, 3, the high school only uses 3 buses based on today's ridership, would all be able to do 3 runs. The Woodsdale would all, those buses 11 through 17 would all do 1 run, and then the Beaverbrook, there's that 1, 2, 3 again. That's a 3-tiered bus, and then 4 through 9 are the blue. That's a second tier. They do 2 runs a day. So you can see that those buses that provide service to the middle school then are able to go to the Beaverbrook and do those runs. The problem with this is that the middle school would begin its runs at 6:40. That means that our 5th and 6th graders would be at bus stops for 2-ish months a year in the dark. During those times when the roads are the most dangerous due to the weather conditions. The high school would have a late start time, and this does provide 40 minutes between the Woodsdale and the Beaverbrook. I'm also going to say, this is my opinion, and I will share my opinion with you, that we do have a number of families who have younger children, and the older students are providing daycare for their siblings, and they get home first because they are high school students. I haven't done a survey to know that. I think it's reasonable for me to just assume that. I think there are single-parent homes where this is the condition, 2-parent homes where parents are working a lot, especially as kids get older, and this would create a hardship for those families. So I just wanted to note, in addition to those three bullets, that this option does. The middle school, 6 minutes to stop early. The high school does get the late start time, and it does provide the 40 minutes between the Woodsdale and Beaverbrook. And it does also provide start times for the Woodsdale Beaver Brook that are more amenable to both parents and faculty and staffs. So, can I go through all of these and then answer questions at the end? Is that what it says? So option 2. Late start for the high school and the middle school starts at 7:40. This eliminates that concern about students being out earlier. I will not re-explain the tiered system to you. I think you can understand it from the previous examples I gave. This starts the bus route for the middle school at 7 a.m. So the high school gets its late start time. This provides the bus routes, although the middle school starts at 7:40, the runs start at 7 a.m. Due to that's a benefit, due to the time between the high school and the Beaver Brook dismissal, this will create an additional tier for the system. The additional cost of that is approximately $100,000 with one bus for the middle school and then one bus providing the route for the Woodsdale. What are we doing for this year?
Good, if there's usually a bus on the Woodsdale side, so that bus would be able to we're anticipating just one bus would have time to get to Woodsdale pickup.
Isn't there anything else I should do?
I don't think so. It's just, these times make it more difficult to share. In the morning, as Peter said, it's not as big an issue because it's the end of the day where the different length of days create the problem.
This increases the times, though, between the Woodsdale and Beaver Brook for those people that have kids at both programs. So the third option, the high school remains at the same time that we currently have this year. The middle school is pushed up to 7:50 and dismisses at 2:22. Woodsdale is moved up to 8:40 to 2:45, and the Beaver Brook is moved up to 9:05 and 3:10. That means, again, the high school would stay the same. There's 48 minutes between the middle school and Beaver Brook, so we can share those buses and actualize that efficiency and those savings. There's 25 minutes between the Woodsdale and Beaver Brook. The middle school, the Woodsdale and Beaver Brook start earlier than they're currently starting. What I want to say about all of this is that if this community and the school committee want to, go with option 1, and they're not as concerned about this 5th and 6th graders, or if you want to spend the extra money on option 2, and you go back to the budget, and we just have to make adjustments to make that happen, that would be a cost. We can do those things. I'm giving you what we've worked on and what I believe to be the best recommendation for pre-K through 12. And again, I do caution you, it's just my opinion about families with younger kids who need their high school kids to help them out. Again, I don't have a survey on that. I just know that the Boston Public Schools surveyed everybody. They had 1,200 responses, and then they ended up with dozens of public meetings, and then they flip-flopped on the decision, and that's one of the reasons. The people who are working those jobs and have those kids in those situations, it seems, didn't answer that survey. So,
The only, on option 3, the other piece of that is, so Beaver Brook would dismiss at 3:10, but one of the things that has happened this year, and we've talked about this in previous meetings, is because of the times between the middle school and Beaver Brook, buses are getting to Beaver Brook later, so they're not there when school is dismissed. With this scenario, I would anticipate the middle school buses being able to be there pretty close to 3:10, load and go home, and be home significantly earlier than they are now, although the dismissal is only 10 minutes earlier. Those buses being able to be there on time for when school is dismissed would be a very different scenario.
So the recommended option for you would would be option 3. We're not looking for people to even consider that tonight. Just wanted to make it clear that that was the recommendation. And this, by the way, does solve the majority of the goal. The only thing it doesn't solve is the late start time for high school. It solves all of those other issues, and it's not maybe the best solution for the high school, but the community of the high school, because they want to come later. But it's what I believe the best solution is pre-K through.
Does anyone have any questions?
2. Is maybe more Felicia too. Is option 2 the only one that has a cost impact?
Correct.
Okay. And Peter, this will be you. Is there any change to the early education program?
So I've had a few conversations with Laura regarding the preschool start times, and I anticipate they will change a little bit with the dismissal of the middle school being at 2:12, but there's a little bit more flexibility with the pre-kindergarten program to be able to fit in the times there, because there's no buses. So that is, we have been talking about where it would fit in there.
Anyone else have any questions?
Does this save money because there are buses doing 3 tiers? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't save money, it doesn't cost money, because there's actually fewer buses doing 1 tier.
Roger, so Millennium Drive. Last year, you had a couple students that were here that were advocating for the late start, and one of the things they had talked about was the high school students leaving first because the middle school people are coming out and high school students still, or vice versa. I forget which it was. I think it was the high school people who were still might still be there. Is that how it goes now? And I didn't know if there was if they had seen any problems with that, with the high school students kind of hanging around as the middle schoolers came out.
They're all hanging around.
That was one of the concerns. They thought that if the middle schoolers get out earlier, then they were off the premises, and then the high schoolers came out, and that was one of the things that they were advocating for having a later start for high school kids.
I think we would have envisioned that, but now, having lived it, I think perhaps the middle school kids will be hanging around while we're still in school if we flipped it, with nothing to do.
So it doesn't really matter then. And then the other question I had too was with the high school, one of the options with the high school getting on at like 2 or whatever, does that impact like sports, like 3 o'clock? Like them getting to any kind of sports activities or after school activities in general?
Do you have any other questions?
Thanks. Look forward to feedback or questions or thoughts. There's no discussion going on.
Okay. Report of the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services.
Yes, hello, good evening. So the first piece, I just wanted to give you an update on the coordinated program review. We have the DESC representative, Deb Conover, coming on Monday. We'll be meeting with a variety of administrators and teachers. And the focus of the coordinated program review orientation will be to basically talk about the focus of procedural and process to state and federal regulations in the area of special ed, ELL, Title I, and civil rights. So we're really excited that she's coming in January, because then that means the site visit is right around the corner in March. So we'll be able to let you know how that audit goes. Okay? Second piece is we have our next PD is this coming week and on Friday. And we have a lot going on. So there's a lot of technology focus. We have curriculum writing. We have MCAS online trainings. We have the accreditation at the pre-kindergarten program, and then assessments, and really looking at preparing for our MCAS training as well with online work. So that's what's coming this week. So any questions on those two? Before I move on to the next piece would require a motion of approval, and that's if you take a look at the Chester J. Millette Jr. Outstanding Teacher Award, and there was a proposal that was asked to be considered here at school committee. This hasn't been changed probably since it was written, and I don't even know what year it was written. Do you know when Mr. Chester Millette Jr. left?
It was at least 20 years ago.
So over 20 years. Okay.
25?
So,
40.
30.
He left in 92. That's when Dr. Wright started.
1992.
1992. All right. So, school committee, you get to make change. This is big doings. All right. So there was a proposal to not just acknowledge teachers, but to also acknowledge educational support personnel. So all the other people that might not have the title of teachers is also given the opportunity to be recognized. So it would be teachers and educational support personnel. So if you look through what was written when this was originally created a long time ago, I basically updated it, and in red you see where it says next to teacher I put and educational support personnel. And then just a few things that I noticed just for some commas and notations, and I can go through it unless you already have and you have questions for me. What would you prefer, that I read through it?
I prefer that you read through it.
Okay. All right. So let's go the first one under the selection process. If you look at the first, just focus on the red part where it says the committee will select one. I just added 2 candidates and added an S there at the end, candidate, whose name will be forwarded to the school committee for confirmation. And then if you skip down to use only the space on the form provided under each criteria, and I changed that to question because they're really just questions. There's not like a criteria that's written. And even that's antiquated because people submit things that are handwritten. People submit things that are typed. And we have not disqualified anybody because they wrote too much. We're just happy that they wrote about our teachers. So we could remove that as well. So that's something for you to consider. That's why I asked to remove the sentence, any additional pages will be disregarded. Okay? On the next page, I just basically listed the nomination packet under there, and I added and educational support personnel. And basically, I put under the name of nominee where it says greater subject area taught, just change that to position. So then we know whether they're a teacher or whether they're a paraprofessional or a nurse or a secretary or a custodian or whomever. And then if you go further down, they wanted to have up top, name of student or person making the nomination, and then the line after signature of the person. I think as long as the name's there, I don't think we need to have, it's not a legal document. If it's printed, it's good. If it's,
Service and having to be if known.
go add if known.
Student might not know.
I was gonna just say, I was just writing that down, or just have it say to be filled in, or to be filled in by somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not even needed. Yeah, I don't know if that's even, does it matter?
So the question is for everybody is there's one area that says under the nomination packet, first you write the nominee's name, and then we're going to move to most likely change from greater subject area to change to position. Then you write the school that they're at, and then the next line is years of service at Abington. And so Felicia had requested saying maybe if known, and that's the conversation right now with Chris and Felicia.
I think it's nice information to have on the packet, but the person nominating might not know it. Might be something that the administration needs to look up.
I would say 98% of the people filling this out wouldn't know that, including me.
I think putting if known is a good thing.
Okay, great. I can add that. I'll add that. And then where you have the check boxes there, it says check 1 if you're a PTO representative, a principal, an AEA rep, a school committee rep. Then they had a separate section, a sentence that said nomination resulted from a recommendation made by an Abington student, and I just put student right under school committee. So whether it's a student or a PTO or principal or AAA school committee, doesn't matter, just check off who it is and then we'll know.
Would parent help?
I think there's, you want me to add parent?
Yeah. I think it was probably understood as PTO, but what if, you know?
But there may be a parent that's not part of it.
Yeah, let's
Don't
just
consider
list
themselves
it.
part of the PTO.
Just list it, right?
Sure.
Parent/guardian.
And then on the next page, it has PTO/principal/AEA/school committee form. And we can add, you know, the parent guardian piece to that as well, just to make it the same. Or you can change it all, 'cause it's rather long. And they used cite. They used the word cite, and I recommended to just put explain the responsibilities versus they're not quoting, they're not, you know, using a citation. So they may want to just say, explain the responsibilities accepted and needs performed by this candidate, which were well above those normally expected. So they would, you know, explain that. And then in the next area, the question is, please give a summary of the dedication, perseverance, and commitment to helping students as reflected by the activities of this teacher. And then I added, or educational support personnel. And then the next piece where you see the red is the same thing. I just added under the selection of the outstanding teacher and added, and educational support personnel will be based on the strength of the nomination and their ability to illustrate that an individual performs deeds that are well above those normally expected, thereby distinguishing the teaching profession through great example. Maybe we should change teaching profession to educational. Because it's not just teaching if it's teacher, because it would be the educational support personnel. Through great example of dedication, perseverance, and commitment to helping students. And then on the last page, which is the student nomination form, I just did basically the same things with the added the educational support personnel on question 1. List specific examples of how this teacher or educational support personnel has performed his or her responsibilities well above those normally expected. And then on the second is, please give a summary of your teachers or educational support personnel dedication and commitment to helping students. And then the question is, do we want the next one, list specific reasons why you feel this teacher is an outstanding teacher or educational support personnel for you and other students in Abington. And the last part is, I just added the educational support personnel on the bottom. So, what do you think? Did you get to read it?
Yeah, a question I have though, are you still going to give just one award, or are you going to give one to a teacher and one to an educational support person?
Yeah, that's why "and" is on the front, because it would be both, I think.
Okay.
It would be recognition of a teacher and an ESP, so it's an educational support personnel. It's a nice way to start off the school year, it really is. You know, when I first came here, it was more of the end of the year, but we moved it to the beginning of the year, and it's just a really nice way to be recognized, you know, whether it be your peers or a parent or a student or whomever. It's just a nice way to start off the school year. And I think, you know, the educational support personnel are usually the glue that keeps everything together. And so it's really nice that this proposal was made. And now as school committee members, you get the, you know, exciting task of approving it or not. And I added the logo. So
I think it is an exciting task, because I think it's very nice to be able to give an award to both.
Yeah.
An educator and a support person. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Just for consistency, educational support personnel is used multiple times. Sometimes it's capitalized, sometimes it's not.
Oh, good catch, Mike. Where's that?
Like, it's not capitalized there.
Oh,
So I don't know which way you want to go with it, but it is.
yeah, I can do that. So on their original document, what Mike's saying is on some of it, the teacher was capitalized, and then on some, it was lowercase. So I can just do that uniform. Thank you. Do you want capitalized or lowercase? Big decision to make. So do you like, is everybody good with that? And then it's really nice, and then our PTO, the district-wide PTO always recognizes that as well with a gift. And then we announce it during, you know, Teacher Appreciation Week. We'll be adding, you know, educational support personnel. So it's nice that they get recognized this year, but then also at the beginning of the school year, and there's a plaque, etc.
Yeah, let's buy a new flag.
Hi, yes.
And again, just something that I was thinking of as you were saying that. Have you guys given some thought to, I know just looking around the room, some of the parents that do a really good job helping out the town. Has there been some thought to possibly incorporating them into the additional, I think the name, the
Educational
the capitalized and non-capitalized one?
Took us 40 years to make this change.
Again, just food for thought, but I think it would be a nice thing, and you might get a little bit more oomph in the, on the parent side from something like that too. Just a thought.
No, I think that's nice.
Nice to send that message too, because they're there's a teacher who wins this, and there'll be a professional tutor secretary that wins this, and it's there are a lot of people that deserve the award, and they're symbolic of all of the work that everyone does, similarly with parents. So I don't know if you want to do something differently or add something to this, or something.
I think just so that you understand that the educational support personnel is based on contract language. So your ESPs, an ESP is an educational support personnel. So all those people fall under one contract when teachers fall under another contract. So that was, how it started way back years ago, and it's just that language is there. So that's where it originates. But we can do a separate if you want, or if it's going to be something like PTO, maybe the group town PTO does a recognition there.
Yeah, I was thinking even more something separate. It was just
it's a nice
I think it's
spot.
a great idea that that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
And I was just as I was looking around the room, I just thought it would be something to think about now, think about later, but
Right.
a nice little thing to do.
Yeah, it would be nice. And I also think they would have to come up with, just like here, it's very specified so that when a group comes together, because all teachers can be recognized, but it's those people that are well above, and that's how they distinguished, one versus another, is who's doing more than the regular. And that's how those people are recognized. So, and I think with parents, it would be the same thing, because we have so many parents that give their time in different ways. So how do you define how they get that? And I would say, you all come up with that one. And then we'll work with you on it.
I have another job to do. But it was a good suggestion. So do we have a motion to add educational support personnel to the Chester J. Millett Jr. Outstanding Teacher Award as presented?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Great, thank you.
Okay, Chris, did you want to?
Just about this in general, if we could, so sometimes I never knew about it, so if we can just get it out there more in constant contact, school newsletters, get it out there that it's there, maybe get it out earlier than it has in the past.
Put it in their own newsletter.
So.
Someone said that to me once years ago. I'm
Like the broadcaster, like the newsletters you guys send home.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. Felicia.
Thank you. I'm going to be reviewing the first of our strategic action plan goals, and this being finance and district operations. This was done during our strategic plan for 2020. And there's a number of goals and then action steps and indicators. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. I will highlight some changes from this year from last year. So the first strategic goal is to obtain and responsibly manage equitable, predictable, and sustainable funding for educational programs, facilities, and operations. And the strategic objective is to provide relevant professional development in the area of technology to maximize data management and business continuity. And we've talked about this already tonight, and we've talked about all year, is the professional development around the one-to-one initiative, and also the increase in technology across the district. So the status of the implementation of the one-to-one computer device ratio and program is that professional development has been ongoing during this school year. And the next one is to implement a one-to-one computer device ratio and program at the new middle high school. And we continue to plan for a one-to-one program, and it is the goal to implement it some fashion for FY19. And for some fashion, I mean, we haven't totally decided on the grades yet.
Maybe we should tell them. We have to wait till we close out.
Yeah, so the money that's being used to purchase the devices is from the project, and we have to go through a few more milestones, such as finishing the fields up front, till we know exactly what our money left is in the project.
And the reason that also works is because you want to buy your technology at the end. Otherwise, technology changes so quickly.
Right.
You want that to be the last thing you do, so you get the most up-to-date equipment.
The second strategic goal is to the strategic objective is to collaborate with the community, local, state, and federal officials to obtain sustainable and predictable financial support. And as we are in budget season, we've already started to meet with the town officials, and we'll continue to do that throughout the spring. Invite state officials to address the school committee if you would like, and the membership in our professional organizations that assist us in gathering information and managing our process. Strategic objective 3 is to plan and secure funding through traditional and alternative sources in order to provide state-of-the-art facilities, infrastructure, technology, and other capital projects. The AEF continues to fund over $20,000 in mini grants to our teachers each year, and they again this year. PTO, boosters, and music parents continue to provide funding for extracurricular activities, and we're very thankful for those organizations and their donations. That's it. Thank you.
Can I ask you one, Felicia? I don't know if it was on the back of one of these pages. It was provide transparency and encourage community participation in the regulatory process. I just had one. So we get constant contacts for all sorts of things. And number one, encourage the community to attend school committee meetings. We don't send constant contact for that, though. Is that something that's possible? Just send out to everybody on the list to know when they are? I mean, we know when they are. I try to keep people posted, but.
Sure.
Thank you. Moving on, new business, Ms.
I have
Douglas.
one, I'm sorry.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It's not on there, but what would a meeting be without me giving an update of
yes, we need that.
201 Glenwood's Way? And I actually didn't think I was going to have an update, that's why it's not on there, but I just wanted to talk about two things, and actually just one main thing, and that is, one is I wanted to thank the police department, the fire department, John Stone, Jack Kane, and the DPW with their assistance and all of our frustrations around the snowstorms that we had and the snow here at 201. It was the first time, although we had plans in place and we talked about it, it was the first time that we did have to plow a significant amount of snow around here. Snow ended up in places that we wished it hadn't ended up, such as in parking spaces that, but we've worked with them, we've met with them, and I just really want to thank them for their patience and thank you for your patience around that. There's been a couple other, we've struggled a little bit with sidewalks, and we continue to work with the construction people around product for the sidewalks, so just be careful with that. And one last kind of really, well not kind of, a very important point is that in the roadway from the preschool, from the high school, all the way around to the traffic circle behind the building is live parking only. When you are picking up or dropping off a student, there is not parking in the driveway. And the reason for that is if an emergency vehicle needs to get to the back of the building, to the gym, to the back of the cafeteria, the turf fields, if cars are parked along the roadway, they cannot get by. So I know at the beginning of the year, with the preschool especially, there weren't adequate parking spaces within the parking lot, but there are those spaces now, so please do not park in the drive.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I noticed a problem with that at night with parents picking their kids up from basketball. I came up one night intending to park over by the tennis courts and couldn't get beyond the doors to the gym because they were all lined up there.
It's a fire lane and it's also a road lane.
We'll be adding no parking signs sign helps. There'll still be people that are feeling that they're the signage, but then, you know, we'll take whatever steps we need in the end to move people around.
And Kathy made a good point, it's not just school day, it's all day, all night, during events, during plays, that there's no parking. It is a continuous fire. That's all, thanks.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
a
you.
quick question.
Yeah.
So you have all those do not enter signs at this rotary up here.
Yep.
We're going to put an enter signs once that field is
Yeah.
complete or at some point.
Yes, we are. We're still waiting for the actual site signage. We have all of the traffic signage has been put up, and the actual site signage, the main entry sign, the parking lot signs, those will be put up when they complete the field.
Anyone else have any questions?
You don't like the spray paint though?
Maybe so.
I'm for it, though, I'm coming.
All right, moving on, new business and establishment of the next school committee meeting dates. Our next meetings are scheduled for February 27th, 2018 at 7 p.m. and March 27th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Informational items, Peter?
So just a couple of things that aren't on the agenda that I just wanted to mention. One is, I want to make sure the committee is aware that all of the administrators over last month and this month are going to an ALICE training. That's training for a response to what would be, God forbid, an active shooter. It's a different protocol than what we currently have in place. We don't know. It's quite involved, and we're going to come back to the district and then roll that out as is best and responsible. But we'll be doing it without delay. I just thought it would be good that I make people aware that work is going on right now. That doesn't mean that we don't have plans in place today. It just means that we want to continue to look to improve and do what we can in what would be absolutely horrific. And you don't want to think about, but you have to. The second piece is the kindergarten. So it's a major question for us. I think it's healthy that we're being taped. It goes on cable. This is more for the benefit of nobody who's in this room. It's more for the benefit of the community that might be watching this meeting. There is a kindergarten registration that's coming up. I'll be going to that meeting and talking to our incoming parents about the process of a full day, the proposition of a free full day kindergarten experience for us in the coming year. It's in our preliminary budget. That does not mean that it's in place. It doesn't mean we have it. There's a process that has to take place through the town. It's still a question as to whether or not it will be supported in the budget. Most importantly, I wanted to tell people, I went through, visit the buildings at different times. There's scheduled times. Every month I go through the buildings today. I made sure I went through the kindergarten. And I already knew this, but I want to say it, and I want to repeat it, and hopefully people understand it. Today's kindergarten is nothing like yesterday's kindergarten, other than it's still fun. It is still fun, but the educational piece that goes on in our kindergarten is something that we're very proud of, and it's very meaningful, most importantly to kids. And so I know that people talk about, well, kindergarten is a time where, it's just fun activities and it's a socialization. It's not. There are very well thought out plans by deliberate design to improve and help students build that bridge and that ladder from coming from a variety of different home lives to being so that they can be successful academically in schools. It's that first step that the child takes. It does not mean if we don't get full-day kindergarten, children are going to fail. But what it means is full-day kindergarten is a meaningful educational experience for our kids. And so in planning for that evening, to talking to parents that's coming up at Beaverbrook, I thought it was good to go see it. Even though I've seen it already this year, just go back. The math activities, the English language arts activities, the pre-reading, it's amazing that our kindergarten teachers are able to do that while the students are still having so much fun, enjoying it, the socialization piece. So I just felt like I should say that because we're in this discussion about kindergarten, so I thought that at each meeting I should say something about it. So, and other than that, I have dates to remember.
Yes.
So, sorry to have droned on. It's just important. Friday, January 26th is an in-service day. Wednesday, February 7th, we have a school building committee meeting here at the middle high school library at 6 p.m. On the 7th is our Greenway Boosters meeting at the middle high school library or cafeteria at 7 p.m. That's on a Wednesday. On Monday, February 19th is President's Day. All school offices and buildings are closed. And then on Friday, March 3rd, we have the Abington Education Foundation's LCR. I'm sorry, that should be a Saturday, March 3rd. Is left, center, right tournament at the Knights of Columbus Hall at 7 p.m.
I have one thing. February 2nd, early release too.
February 2nd is an early release day. Is that-
February 2nd is an early release day as well, yes.
All right. Anyone have anything else that we need to mention? All right, then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.